Hello everyone and welcome back to Dancing with Damage. I'm Ian, your resident philosopher.
And I'm Abby, your resident author.
And today we talk about, is it good to stay single as an adult? Abby is clearly not sure. Actually, I think she is sure because she claims that she quite likes living with me.
I'm super happy in my choices. But again, personal choice.
Personal choice, or is it? Let's talk. So, Abby, here are a few things I gleaned from my research. Some of these numbers are probably not
Perfect.
current, up to date, but I think they give us a sense of things. And sometimes a sense is all you need. And in Canada, where we are, Abby, I learned from Statistics Canada
That we are married?
that we are married, that it said that, first page. Didn't talk about, the population or the demographics or the average life expectancy. It was like,
You are married to Abby.
You are married to Abby.
Not even Ian and Abby are married. Just, Ian's on the website. Reminder, you're married to Abby. She's probably 31. No one's sure.
Yes, only one person visits Stats Canada. It turns out it's me. And so they just left a personalized message. That was nice of them. So, adults in Canada, 4.4 million adults in Canada, they say live alone. So that is not married, not common law, not living with a partner of any form. And that apparently comprises around 25% of all households in Canada, which makes it the largest demographic in Canada. So if you threw a rock at Canada and you hit a household, you have the best chance of hitting an adult who is living alone.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was so high.
Well, get a load of this. You think that's crazy? Let's talk about Sweden.
Oh no.
Now, Sweden, sometimes held as a paragon of social structure. It is a word. And interestingly, I just checked out, sometimes I did a little drive-by just to see what Sweden's up to. Like, hey, Sweden. I drive by. I'm like, how's it going?
Are you cool now?
I don't know what's wrong with me. So, turns out Sweden, it's even higher. Apparently something like 40%.
40?
40% of adults in Sweden living alone, thanks to a Swedish mentality of, and I don't want to pronounce it, it had some pronunciation online, but it was something to the effect of stronger alone, or like alone is strength, or strength is aloneness, or something. So anyway, so there you go. Even Sweden is increasing in that trend, and I think that those stats are pretty old. I think it's probably gone even more up. Do you know lots of people in that demographic, or it sounded like it surprised you?
I mean, I know people in that demographic. I did not realize they were the majority. Based on how the news portrays statistics, I would have assumed that married or partnered couples would be the predominant stat.
Turns out, not the majority, but the most common household configuration. And I think they get an advantage because, you have two single people and that's two households. But if you get one couple, it's one household, you see? So they divide and conquer.
So it's not necessarily the highest percentage of the population, just the highest percentage of how households are. Okay. That makes a little more sense.
It does, because 4.4 million Canadians in a population of whatever we're at, 35 million, is not the majority of adults, but it is the most common household configuration. So we're going to talk a little bit about whether that's a good thing for this trend to be going in that direction. And again, when we talk about single versus not single, we acknowledge that there are many forms of marriage, partnership, common law, all these things. But ultimately what it boils down to is, Abby, how would you define that divide between living alone and living with a significant other as an adult?
How so?
Well, for example, we could define it as not being financially dependent on any other partner or person. We could define it as no one else regularly sleeping in the same residence.
Okay. I sort of look at it as hopefully a self-worth definition, where people are not just settling for anybody who is available. They are being discerning and saying, if I am going to merge my life with somebody else, it is going to be a quality person who is worthy of my time and efforts.
That may be the advantages. If we're talking about making a delineation, I think it's fair to say if a person is living alone, basically it means they're not sharing their residence with anybody. No one else has exclusive access to their residence, either through financial or any other
Means?
or patterns. So, what do you think, and you've already listed some, maybe, but what are some maybe advantages of living alone in today's day and age as an adult?
You have a lot more freedom over your schedule. If you have a partner or a roommate or children, those individuals obviously have separate lives running concurrently to yours. And in a healthy relationship, you try to do things that both parties or multiple parties, depending on how many people are in your household, enjoy. So a summer, if you're two people married with two kids, maybe one kid wants to go to the museum, one kid wants to go to the water park, your spouse might want to go see a play, and maybe you want to go to the aquarium. So maybe the four people don't like the other things the other people are doing, but if you live by yourself, you have full control over saying, I do or do not want to do this. I don't have to participate in any activities that don't make me interested. And you also have complete control over your living space. When you live with somebody else, you have to make sacrifices and you have to compromise and you have to decide who gets what space and what kind of things can be allowed in the home. And maybe there are certain hobbies that need a certain amount of availability in the house. And then you have to say, well, maybe you have to put your supplies in storage. So it's some friction to be able to participate in your hobby because there's not enough room in the house for both of us and your hobby. And then it makes it harder for you to find time and also have the resources available to participate in your hobby. So stuff like that.
Is the hobby you're talking about building like a giant Trojan horse and is taking up?
No, I mean, for example, painting. Painting requires a lot of supplies. Often canvases are large and there's different kinds of paintbrushes and there's different kinds of paints and they have to be stored at certain temperatures. And I have seen artist studios and I have a friend who's an artist, and the amount of supplies you can need can be a significant chunk of living space. And especially younger people nowadays are not as financially secure as those who were the baby boomers, as we mentioned last episode, because the cost of everything is like 17 times more or something than it was 20, 30 years ago. So the amount of square footage younger people, like people in their 20s to maybe 40s, have access to is often less than the ideal picket fence, 2.5 bedrooms, 2.5 bathrooms house, which means that every square foot becomes that much more precious.
Okay, so these are all pros, certainly. And why, in your view, Abby, would you say that people are choosing to live the single life more and more? As a interesting tidbit, in Sweden, chatted about Sweden, one of the facilitating factors of this, apparently, is there's such a robust social service network and affordable housing and all these sort of things that it's easy to become financially independent and afford your own space and not have to depend on someone else for financial contribution. Do you think that's what's happening in Canada too?
I think that would absolutely be a factor. I think a lot of people, historically, especially women, would get married not necessarily for love or because it's the right choice, but because, especially, like 100 years ago, women couldn't have their own bank accounts, they couldn't own property, they were considered possessions over people. So if they wanted to live and have some kind of a life, they had to be married to a man, or else they would be destitute. So it was sort of a matter of necessity. But I've heard a lot of women specifically in their mid to late 30s online saying, once I was able to become financially independent and I have a life that is meaningful to me, I have activities I like, I live in a space I like, I can pay all my bills, and I have some wiggle room for fun, the standard of a partner they would accept has shot up. So I think, and I like to think, because it would be a positive thing, that our value of who we are as a person and our checklist of what we're willing to accept in a partner has become more important, because historically, especially 20, 30 years ago, you'd hear people, they hit 30 and all of a sudden they're 1 million years old and they're willing to marry anybody with a pulse who doesn't seem to have a criminal record and is willing to say they love them, just to be married, to not feel like they don't fit into the community, to feel like they haven't run out of a chance to have a kid. But with the decrease in people wishing to pursue parenthood, I think that those are some of the factors in Canada.
By the way, you can't see the fire very well
It's on.
today. It's been getting warmer where we are.
It's almost May and there's still ice on the lake.
That's true, but it is getting warmer. So we've been a bit lazier with the fire, and so it's being a bit lazy. Don't worry. Don't worry, it hasn't gone anywhere. I'm sure you love the fire. I know we love the fire. People just love fire. Fire is like, if it's not out of control, fire is a very calming thing. It helps Abby and I think, and it keeps the backs of our head very warm.
Especially because I think it's still -7 outside. I would like a refund on where we live, please.
Oh dear, she would like a refund. And speaking of where we live together.
Yes.
And so you've named some of the advantages of being single. And so with your finger to the pulse of the interwebs, Abby, I am not the interweb.
I feel like sometimes you are. You're like, I have Googled. Continue.
It is so easy to Google things these days. I love it. So, Abby. Abby, what would you say are some advantages of living in a couple? With or without children, what are the advantages of living not singly as an adult?
One of the biggest ones is financial security. As we've mentioned many times in the past, even if you made, as an example, $100,000 as a single person, that's a great wage. That's so much money. But if the average homes across Canada are ranging from $600,000 to $1 million on average, $100,000 a year before taxes, when you also have to pay for electricity and water and transportation and food and clothing and hopefully a little bit of money for emergency situations, you know, if you get invited to a wedding, to pay for that. Or maybe just some fun, maybe to pay for a coffee once a week that you didn't have to brew yourself. People like that stuff, I hear. I've heard Starbucks is very popular.
Okay, so money.
Yeah, but it's nice to know that when you live with somebody, you sort of double your financial spending power. Whereas in the 50s and 60s, one person made more than enough to buy a house almost outright within a couple years. And it was really easy for their partner to stay home and or raise children, you know, because there was no stress. You had enough money to buy things. But I mean, grapes right now, I love cotton candy grapes. Oh, so good. A bag of just like one bunch at the store was $25. And we looked at each other and went, we love grapes, but we can't stomach that. But because we live together, if we were having a crazy day, maybe we would buy that $25 single bunch of grapes and we could afford that. Whereas if I lived by myself, there would never be a time at any price I could afford grapes. And that would be truly depressing.
What if we went to the store and purchased one grape and then cut it neatly in half?
You can't buy one grape, sir. Are you crazy?
What if, well, you bring it up to the self-checkout and they say, place your purchase on the weigh scale if it's produce. You place the single grape, you artfully detach the barcode sticker from the bag and place it on the single grape. Everyone's watching you, but
Tainting the grape.
they don't want to say anything because the cost of living is high and they don't want to make a big deal about it. So you weigh the single grape, you scan the barcode. It costs probably $3. You then take it back, rinse it carefully. You got time. It's only one grape. You can take your time. You rinse it. You could julienne it. You could peel it.
Why?
Well, I mean, you got to make it last, right? So you could turn it into like a jelly and serve it on little miniature spoons and sup it.
I like to think, I know they have security guards in some stores. I really like to think if you tried to purchase a single grape, they'd just be like, security, you just, nonsense is happening. I really need you to be here.
So if Abby were ever to commit a criminal offense, which I don't think is likely, but perhaps the most likely of the unlikeliness is her going to the fruits and vegetables aisle in a grocery store, seeing the price of grapes, furtively looking around, stuffing her mouth full of grapes.
Then would be so unclean though. You have to wash them.
She stuffs them in her. She stuffs them in her. She rinses them with hand sanitizer.
Ew, no, you can't eat hand sanitizer.
She loves grape.
I would have to bring a bucket of water and just dunk the grapes
That's
in.
right.
I'd leave the bucket though.
That's right. She leaves the bucket, a value of probably more than the grapes, stuffs them all in her cheeks like a chipmunk, and proceeds to march out with bundles of grapes. And you could see the shape of the grape through the cheeks. But would anybody stop her? And if they did, hold it right there, miss. And then she does the cartoon thing where she spits them out like a machine gun.
You can't waste like $900 worth of grapes.
Okay, so maybe this isn't as likely as I thought. So, yeah, okay, so we've talked about finances. Anything else springs to mind about an advantage of not living alone as an adult?
Well, I'm going to say loneliness paired with social connection. We crave as humans positive social relationships. And when you live with somebody, you have an incredible opportunity to have a very positive social relationship where you have the comfort of knowing someone is there, you can talk to them, you can share in life's trials, tribulations, and wins. You're not sitting by yourself feeling isolated and possibly doing things to exacerbate your isolation, like spending hours on social media or the internet. When you have other people around, I find I am less likely to spend time on social media or playing games on my phone by myself because Ian's here and I like doing stuff with him. And we like to structure our time so we do things we both enjoy together. And a lot of things we enjoy require two people. So I have a crippling fear of being online and having people know I'm alive online. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but I cannot, on any game, on any platform, play against other people virtually, other humans. For some reason, that cripples me. Pokemon Go, I can't do an online battle. The game Cluedo, I have on Steam. I've played hours of it against an AI bot, but I cannot bring myself to play against other humans because they might know I exist or something. So I would have a really hard time playing any of the games that are 2 or more players without Ian because I would never bring myself to try to interact with other humans online. I just cannot do it. I think all of the PSAs when you're a kid, they're like, don't talk to people online, everyone's a criminal, they're all gonna get you, was internalized to a point where I'm like, if you are talking to me on the internet, you are probably gonna kill me. Like, I can't. Even if there's no risk, I just can't.
Fair. Okay, so that I'm sure is on everyone's mind. Now, you have described something that reminds me of the paddle boat. So Abby and I, we have a paddle boat that we will rent out to guests at our place. And the paddle boat is like 100 pounds, and it's so heavy.
So heavy.
And sometimes we are asked by guests to bring the paddle boat from where it lives on land to the water so that guests can use it. And I've tried to move this paddle boat by myself. And I'm a lot taller than Abby. I weigh more than Abby.
You're a lot stronger than Abby.
You would think that, I'd be able to handle it. But it is so difficult to manage by itself. It is like spine crushing. I have to put it like on my back. I turn into Quasimodo. I'm like limping on my one hand and my legs in great agony. Things are falling off the paddle boat if I try and carry it by myself. But it's funny when I incorporate Abby into the equation and get her help, there's a handle at each end and we can both hoist a handle. And even though, as I say, she's like half my size, the job becomes about 10 times easier. And so that's a little bit how you can look at living in a couple as an adult, because that's just how life is. A lot of challenges and things that we have to do in life as we go through life are very difficult by yourself. A good example would be raising dogs, for example. Right? It just becomes exponentially easier. The total is greater than the sum of its parts, kind of thing. So that could be a strong example for why it's prudent to live as a couple. Now, Abby, I had another question for you. You mentioned it's good to have a companionship, living with someone. But someone might say, well, Ian and Abby, if you live alone, you can just really have a great network of friends. You could be out every day with your friends. You could have them over for dinner every night if you wanted. You could be over at their place all the time, book trips together. Isn't that an even better companionship than a partner.
I mean, that sounds pretty great. And I think people do that. And you can do that when you're in a couple or when you're single. I think for me, personally, the benefit of having a loving romantic relationship, there's an intimacy there where I feel like we are sort of one person fighting the world together. We sort of capture each other's weaknesses and turn them into strengths.
I'm a cyborg. So I actually am not a human and have no weaknesses.
I think I'm more of a cyborg than you because I've had actual surgery and you haven't.
I don't understand. I don't need surgery.
I'm down one organ compared to him, so I am more cyborg because I am less human. Because if you total all the sum, because a cyborg is less human than a human, right? But I'm down a gallbladder because mine didn't work. But if I have one less organ, then the percentage of human I have is less than the percentage of human you have because you have one more organ than I do. So I am more cyborg than you because I am less human than you.
And I just noticed she's wearing glasses. Coincidence? She is the cyborg. I am a single person, adult, living in Canada. I'm one of the 23% of households.
No. What was your reason that it's nice to be married?
Also, her hand, she just touched me with her hand. It is like ice. I know the fire's not going that well, but it is not that cold.
It is -7 outside. I am like a reptile. I need to be 20 degrees warmer than everyone else. I would be wearing a sweater right now, but for the fact I am trying to look less like a ball of a pom-pom and more like a human being for a cyborg.
It is like if an autopsy table came to life and grabbed you
You're so mean.
and married you.
You're so weird.
That's how cold that was. No, but Abby has a very, you know what they say, cold hands,
Warm heart.
cold hands, cold feet. She's just cold.
Oh.
No,
Is
cold
that
hands.
a British saying then? Cold hands, warm heart? My parents say that all the time.
That's the expression. But
You-
cold
okay.
hands, cold feet is probably more
That's funny.
statistically accurate. Just because of the way the circulation works in the extremities.
My feet are freezing, and I am wearing slippers.
Yikes. And even odds, the tips of her ears are cold too.
Yeah.
Don't check this at home, kids. So you might fall over. If you kind of reach your ear and it keeps going back. No, that's not true. So what I think of, Abby, I think of the story of the table in the Social Blueprint. The Social Blueprint, we wrote that together, and it is available where fine books are sold and fine wine. No, they're totally separate organizations.
I don't even know if there's a place you can buy this and alcohol. I don't think there is.
If you find somewhere, let us know. So there is a parable in there, or a fable, I suppose, about a carpenter who makes a table, and it has 3 strong legs but 1 weak leg, and so when it went to the feast, it collapsed. Just like humans need 4 things, 4 legs to keep our tabletop from collapsing. Food, water, shelter, and relationships. Now, Abby, I mentioned how somebody might say, well, as a single person living alone as an adult in Canada or around the world, you can have a robust social life, and surely this makes up for the fact you're not living with a partner. But what is the essence of a positive social relationship? What's that word that it always boils down to?
Love.
Comes down to love. Now, what are the wings of love as per our theory in the Social Blueprint?
Proximity and codependence.
In the Social Blueprint, it is actually a bat that has these wings of love.
Yeah.
Today, it is a crow for your viewing pleasure. So, we can agree, perhaps, that someone living alone in Canada and having a robust circle of friends, and someone living in a partnership in Canada, both have lots of proximity with other people. And proximity, we summarize in the book as having prolonged eye contact with. And I think that's fair. I mean, it's a bit odd, but the reason we have that is because true socialization usually requires people looking at each other, and it's just an instinctive thing. You could also look at it as having experiences together. I think that's a very good way of measuring proximity, but it's being within eye shot of each other. Eye shot?
I thought you were going to say eyeshadow, and I was like, dang. They fancy.
If you have to do with an eyeshadow of each other, that's very close. Because eyeshadow is not, I mean, if you apply it thickly, you've got even not that much. So, yikes, that's pretty close. Although I think I would look majestic with eyeshadow because it would really, I think, complement my, what do you think?
Yeah, you're very pretty. I think you look great in eyeshadow.
There you go. And we could be eyeshadow to eyeshadow and just stare at each other all day long.
So boring.
There's a scene in The Little Mermaid.
Very boring.
Animated Disney, yeah, she's quoting it. Animated Disney movie, The Little Mermaid. Check it out if you haven't. And basically a seagull
Named Scuttle.
and The Little Mermaid named Ariel do that. They do, like, they bonk heads and they stare at each other's eyes. Anyway.
Let's try to explain what a snarflat is.
And they just stared at each other all day long. And it got very boring. Yeah, I'm not sure. So, okay, let's agree that the wing of human proximity is there. Now, what about the wing of codependence and a person living alone and having a social life and a person living with a partner?
I think there's a different level when you have a partner. And we support, I don't know if I've ever said this, we support all types of partnerships. Love is love, no judgment. We love love as long as you're treating each other with respect and love. We support you and we are allies. And when you have that kind of love and a partnership that is meaningful to you, it's a different level. Have you ever experienced or heard of people, they talk to their friends, but then everything you say ends up back to your partner? I've talked to my best friend about this. We've laughed about it, that, you know, her husband knows everything that I tell her because she's like, yeah, I'm going to report it back to him because he's also my best friend. I think that having a romantic partner, a loving relationship, it's sort of like a built-in best friend. You can have a lot of friends and you can have a lot of best friends, and there's sort of a separate best friend slot for your partner. It's a different kind of relationship. It's a different level of intimacy. You know someone in a different way. For example, your nighttime habits, how you brush your teeth, if you apply a face mask, whether you like to get showered in the morning or the afternoon or at night, if you stay up really late, if you go to sleep really early, if you're an early bird, if you like to sleep in as long as humanly possible, you know, do you like to read? Actually, how often do you spend reading? Because I can witness this. It's sort of like having an expert in your life. And it's kind of funny because sometimes Ian will just point things out to me about me that he's like, I don't think you've noticed this because why? And fair point, why? I don't really have an answer. But it's a different level of intimacy, and it is a really magical thing to know that he is here as part of me. We are a partnership, and that whatever comes up, we can just talk to each other about it. There's no questioning if I will offend him. There was no questioning if it's appropriate to bring this up or having to wait for a socially accessible time. Sometimes I just call him and just yell at him in the phone at whatever I'm thinking.
I'm offended that you can't offend me.
I don't know what that means. But you know what I mean? It's different.
It's different. And so going back to the social blueprint and the philosophy of the social blueprint, we can actually answer the question of, is it better to live singly or in a partnership? And because you want the strongest table legs possible, that is important for your mental health. It is important for fundamental happiness and the completion of a human soul. That living with a partner and having a codependence, where both people are counting on the other for their quality of life, it increases the strength of the contract of love, which is to make sacrifices in the short term for the best interest of someone else. And so, without actually having that role of partner living with you, you almost don't have one of the wings of love. It's almost like a bird with one wing. It's not going to fly as far. So indeed, we argue that it is best, for the reasons that Abby mentioned too. There are financial advantages and so forth, but most importantly, for the state of someone's soul, it is critical to have a level of codependency with someone. And so this moving away from that is a damaged practice, and that's why it's very important that this message gets out there, because if you read the social blueprint and you agree with the logic of how love works and the instinctive tracks that it functions on, you can quickly see that living alone as an adult, it can appear as if you're getting all the ingredients for a good life, but actually you're missing one of the most critical things. And I guess I could compare it to like if you were in the Olympics.
Okay.
If you were in the Olympics and you put all this effort in, but for whatever reason, you could only get silver medal in the Olympics. Wouldn't that be a shame? Even if you were doing everything right, you could only get silver, because unless you have all the ingredients for the wings of love and for love to succeed, you'll never achieve the gold standard in relationships. And that is what's the most important to the soul. So you want the gold standard, you don't want the silver standard. Now, of course, in this day and age, Abby mentioned this right off the hop, it can be so hard to find someone, because everyone is so damaged generally, it can be really hard to find someone to write that contract of love with you, even though it's not actually written down, it's an unspoken contract. It can be really hard to find someone. That's a fair point, that it's probably better to live alone than with a selfish, damaged person. But those are both bad options. And what we're trying to get at with the social blueprint is we want to reverse this self-destructive trend, because what's going to end up happening is, indeed, there is a certain anxiety involved with social relationships. And how would you describe that anxiety that can pop up in a social relationship?
It's sort of the fear of missing out is the most efficient way I could summarize that. You know, if there's any part of you that thinks I would like biological children of some kind, and I would like to either naturally conceive them or use some kind of medical technology to conceive them, then the older you are, the less likely it is you will be successful. So there's the fear of missing out on a potential type of lifestyle.
No, but I'm thinking really like, in terms of, you described it earlier. You said, I don't like playing games online because if I know other people are interacting with me, it makes me anxious.
Yeah.
Why does it make you anxious?
I should get therapy and find that out. But I don't know. They're real and they're interacting with me and they know I'm real. And I think part of me is scared they will judge me. I don't like team sports because I don't like the thought of other people being negatively impacted by my actions. The only kind of sports I participate in are ones where it's just you. So you're only benefiting or hurting yourself in your performance. But I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. You see, social creatures are concerned about negative judgment from other members of our group. This defines a lot of social behavior. It's like a water slide. It's like how if you get on the water slide and it just shoots you down because it's so hard to depart from social norms when you're face to face with someone, especially if you're fairly well adjusted. I mean, if you're a sociopath or you're way on the edge of the damage spectrum, it's very easy to deviate and treat people however you want. But if you're in the range of fairly healthy, fairly well adjusted, there is an instinctive fear of being judged negatively, and it can tailor our actions. This causes anxiety. The fear of the unknown is what anxiety is, and the fear of being judged negatively is what Abby is describing. And so what I'm getting at is, if you live singly and then say, well, I'll just have a very robust social life, with that magnet of social media and Netflix and all these social media platforms being such a safe way to get your entertainment versus going out in the real world and even interacting with that circle of friends where there is that potential of negative judgment. It may seem like a person living singly could have that, but in fact, what I think we will end up see happening is that people who are living alone will become more alone, like the oyster that tightens its shell more and more because the outside ocean is scary.
Yeah, I mean, if you have, let's say, 5 best friends, chances are one of them will probably have a child or adopt a child at some point in their life. And once that happens, it becomes harder to spend time with them only because their lives become busier. And if any of your friends have a romantic partner, there are always going to be like 30% of the time where they just have to do stuff with their partner because it's important you prioritize that relationship as well. So there will always be times where somebody without a partner will end up being alone. And it's nice to be alone occasionally, but I find whenever you're gone, I just miss you because we are very codependent for, I guess, love reasons, because we're supposed to be. Maybe?
I am a cyborg.
No, I am a cyborg. But
Are we both?
we might both be cyborgs at this point. I don't know. Yeah, the internet's weird. I really like that you brought up, or you brought it back to the fact that there are a lot of damaged people, because it is, and why I sort of applaud the single movement in this time in history, because there is so much damage in society, a majority of single people nowadays, because a lot of people are already partnered up. So especially the older you get, the amount of the single population, the percentage of damage tends to be higher, just by sheer math. That just is how it works. When you're 15, you know, everyone is pretty much single, and damaged and undamaged people are equally likely to be available. But when you're 35, you know, most people who are not damaged often have found somebody that is meaningful to them and have partnered up. So the chances of finding somebody who matches you and is also not damaged enough to have a positive long-term social relationship is much lower. But I hope, and we hope, that with the social blueprint, why did you back up?
I don't know. I thought it was going to get the coffee mug. Even Gray was worried for me. Hi, buddy.
But-
did we bother your nap?
But seriously, I hope that going forward, we can help to reduce damage in society so that there are more viable options, because I think fewer people would be single if there were more people in society who were able to be empathetic and curious and treat other people with respect and love and kindness. It's such a low bar, but most of us aren't meeting it, and it's sad.
I think in sum, what we can say, because Abby's quite right, is if there was an Olympics of adult relationships, we would, based on the theory of the social blueprint, put in bronze medal people living together as adults, but in a damaged relationship. Silver medal goes to people living alone as adults, which is the growing trend. And in gold medal is having a partner who's healthy and therefore fulfilling the end of the bargain of love and doing things in the best interest of the other person, so that the paddle boat can make it to the water of life and can go freely and explore the beautiful waves and lakes of our world. And here is a beautiful lake.
I was going to say cyborgs didn't medal in the Olympics of love. Cyborgs were not.
Oh yeah, cyborgs got an honorable mention because they are made of metal, so they don't need a medal. So that is our take on living singly. Hopefully, with the social blueprint, if its policies are followed, in a little while, that trend we'll see it reverse, and that will be better for the human soul. So thanks for tuning in. I think, Abby, you've inspired me. I'm going to write on our board of ideas, for we have one. It's not that one. That one just says staying single. We have a board of ideas, and next time I think we're going to talk about marriage versus other types of partnerships, because you mentioned the different kinds.
Yeah.
You and I are married, correct?
We're super married. We're the most married.
And we might talk about that. But if you have an idea for a topic you'd like to chat with us about, we would be just ecstatic to see that, and we would try and make that happen, because we love talking about this sort of stuff. And the Board of Ideas has lots of room.
Anyway, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We hope you have a great day.